Hello class 6. In the previous videos we learned what a simple machine is and we looked at the functions of simple machines. We also studied about something called efficiency of a machine, wherein we saw that for ideal machines only the efficiency is 100% or 1, whereas for real machines, the everyday machine that we use, for all those machines, for all real machines, the efficiency will always be lesser than 100% or 1. We also looked at something called mechanical advantage, denoted by m dot a, which was load divided by the effort. So, with all these basics of machines, let us look at today something called a lever. Now, what is a lever? A lever is basically a rod which can move about a fixed point, which can turn about a fixed point. Okay, like for example, just a sec, like for example this clip here. So these ends or arms, so to say, of the clip are the levers which can rotate about these fixed points here. It can turn about this fixed point. So this fixed point is what is called the fulcrum. Likewise, you have this pair of scissors. Okay, this pair of scissors can turn or move about this fixed point over here. So this point is the fulcrum, so to say. Alright, so all of these are levers, remember. I almost said rivers. Okay, but this is what is called a lever, remember. So this is how you define a lever. Now basically there can be three kinds of levers, simply called, the first one is called first class lever, wherein you have examples like, okay, before I give you the examples, a lever where the fulcrum is in between the load and the effort is what is called the first class lever. So let me write the lever where the fulcrum is in between the load and the effort, and the effort is called a first class lever. So this is the first kind of lever, wherein the fulcrum is in between the load and the effort. Like again, to give you an example, a pair of scissors is an example of first class lever, because these are the points, these two are the points where we are exerting our effort, and here is the fulcrum. Okay, and the load, a paper or a cloth, is placed here. So the clip right now is acting like the load, here is the fulcrum, and here is where we apply the effort. So we see, in case of a pair of scissors, the fulcrum is in between the load and the effort. So therefore a pair of scissors is a first class lever. Likewise, this clip also is a, okay, let me keep the pair of scissors here. This clip also is an example of a first class lever. Why? Because this clip clips something like this piece of chalk over here. Alright, so it's holding something, it's gripping something. So this piece of chalk is acting like the load right now. I'm applying the effort here with my fingers. Okay, and here is the fulcrum. So this clip also is an example of a first class lever, wherein, mind you, the fulcrum has to be in between the load and the effort. Likewise, this plier is an example of a first class lever. This is the fulcrum, here is where we place the load, and here is where we exert the effort. Okay, so these are some of the examples of first class lever. The other examples could be a common balance, a taraju. Okay, in a common balance, what happens? You have two pans moving up and down like this, alright, and it moves about a fixed point at the center. You have a rod over here, okay, and it moves about that rod. So a common balance also is an example of a first class lever, remember. Okay, so to give some examples, pair of scissors, a pair of scissors, a pair of pliers, a clip, okay, a common balance. Alright, you can go on adding some of the examples of first class lever. But mind you, how is a first class lever defined? A lever where the fulcrum is in between the load and the effort is what is called your first class lever. Now, to look at another kind of lever, so here is my makeshift duster. So you can pause the video, of course, and please do copy these things in your exercise book, class 6, all of you. I hope you've done that. Okay, so I'm going to erase this. The other kind of lever is what is called a second class lever. Number one is first class lever, second one has to be second class lever, then second class lever. How do you define this? The lever or a lever where the load is in between the fulcrum, and the effort is what is called a second class lever. It's called a second class lever. Alright, okay. Now to give you some examples of second class lever, I have some second class levers over here. Like this lemon crusher or lemon squeezer, whatever you want to call it. Here, this is the point about which this machine, this simple machine works. Okay, so this point, so to say, is the fulcrum, as this is the point about which the simple machine moves. And the lemon, say for example, is the load. Okay, so the lemon is the load, and here is where we apply the effort to squeeze the lemon. Alright, since I need the lemon afterwards to make a lemon juice, so therefore I'm not squeezing here. Alright, so anyway, the lemon is the load and we need to squeeze it, so the load is in between the fulcrum and the effort. So therefore the lemon squeezer or crusher is a second class lever. Likewise, a nut cracker. I have a nut cracker for you all over here. Okay. So this is the fulcrum about which the simple machine moves, and say the lemon is acting like the nut right now. Okay, so the lemon is the load, and here these points is where we apply our effort. So the nut cracker is an example of a second class lever. There are other examples also. Okay, let me first write these examples. Example: a lemon squeezer, what is that thing called? Yeah, a nut cracker, okay, also a wheelbarrow, okay, you can check for the example of wheelbarrow in the book, the picture, okay, it's kind of a trolley, alright. You have it in the school also. The trolley, how do I draw a trolley? I'm very bad at drawing pictures. So it's like a trolley has wheels over here. Okay. So it has a wheel over here and it has a handle over here. It has two handles over here. Alright. So it has two handles. So what happens? You put the load over here. Whatever load you want, okay, it's put in here, alright, and this is a wheel. So you apply the effort over here, of course. This is the load, and where is the fulcrum? The fulcrum is this wheel itself. About this wheel, the wheelbarrow moves. So this is the fulcrum. So wheelbarrow is also a second class lever because the load is in between the effort and the fulcrum, mind you. Okay, you can look for other examples of second class lever also. But don't forget, in a second class lever, the load has to be in between the fulcrum and the effort. And finally, we come to the third kind of lever, which is simply called third class lever. It's called third class lever. Third class doesn't mean it's the worst kind of lever, okay? Third class is simply the name given to it, since the other two are first class and second class levers. So how do you define third class lever? The lever where now what is left to be in between? Where the effort is in between the load and the fulcrum. The load and the fulcrum is called your third class lever. And of course the examples will be different. So third class lever, the lever where the effort is in between the load and the fulcrum, is what is called your third class lever. Is what is called your third class lever. To give you an example, a very old fire tongue here. The fire tongue moves about this point over here, this joint over here. So this is the fulcrum about which the fire tongue moves. Here in between is where I am exerting the effort, alright, and say it is used to hold this piece of chalk. So the piece of chalk is the load. So the effort is in between the load and the fulcrum. So a fire tongue is a third class lever, mind you. Likewise, to pick up ice cubes, alright, or you have a special kind of tong also, okay, you call it ice tong, or you can also call it to pick up, sugar cubes, you have sugar tongs, alright. So all kind of tongs are third class levers where the effort is in between the load and the fulcrum. Likewise, wait. This book is acting like the load right now. My hand, this part, okay, starting from the elbow. So my hand also acts like a third class lever. Why? Because the book is the load right now. The fulcrum is the elbow. The fulcrum is the elbow because it moves about the elbow. Okay? And where is the effort being exerted? The effort is being exerted because of the muscles here. Okay, now when I say muscles, I'm not talking about big, huge muscles. Alright, so you have muscles here on the forearm. So the muscles of the forearm is where the effort is being exerted. So effort is exerted here, the fulcrum is here, my elbow, and the load is the book right now. So my hand, or rather the forearm, also acts like a third class lever. Okay, so to give you some examples of third class lever, you have fire tongs, you have sugar tongs, or ice cube tongs, whatever you want to call it. Sugar tongs, fire tongs, the forearm are some examples of third class levers. Okay, now let me tell you one simple trick to remember first class, second class and third class levers. You have to understand, or not understand, you have to remember the word FLE. So what this word tells us is, in first class lever, the fulcrum is in between the load and the effort. So since it comes first, so it's for the first class lever. So F stands for fulcrum, and since it comes first, so therefore it's for the first class lever. L stands for load. Since it comes in the second place, so therefore the load has to be in between the fulcrum and the effort for the second class lever. And the third one is E stands for effort. So in a third, since it comes in the third place, so it's for third class lever. So in a third class lever, the effort has to be in between the fulcrum and the load. So these letters are telling us for every class of lever what comes in between. For the first class lever, it is the fulcrum that is coming in between the load and the effort. For a second class lever, the load is coming in between the fulcrum and the effort. For a third class lever, it is the effort which has to come in between the fulcrum and the load. So this is how, if you remember this, it will be easier for you to remember the distinctions between first class, second class and third class levers. And you'll be able to remember the definitions also. So this is all for the day class 6. Do take care and stay safe.